Did you know that on a typical construction project, up to 30% of the total cost is not creating value at all? It's not labour, it's not the materials, it's not the building, the asset, or the end product. It's risk and risk management. Now, that number alone should stop all of us within our tracks. Because if nearly a third of our project cost is risk and risk management, the real question is not how much risk do we allow, but how well do we actually understand it? Now, risk is actually one of my favourite topics, and it's one of the most underrated, understated, and misunderstood subjects within our industry. When most people hear the word risk, they instinctively think about safety. And yes, safety risk is important. It matters, it saves lives. But that's not the risk I'm talking about today. I'm talking about commercial risk. Risk to the budget, risk to the programme, risk to viability. Yet I regularly sit in design meetings where the moment risk is raised, conversations drift into safety issues. And that tells me something very important. It tells me that we don't have a shared understanding of what commercial risk actually is, because safety and safety risk belongs in different discussions, led by different teams with different tools. Commercial risk is about money, certainty, decision making. So, what actually is commercial risk? In simple terms, commercial risk is a financial allowance made for an uncertain event, something that's likely but not yet fully defined, something we cannot yet put a firm cost against. And when used properly, it's an essential tool. It protects projects, it allows the uncertainty to be acknowledged. It prevents unexpected issues from immediately turning into losses. So without commercial risk, projects would fail far more often. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Commercial risk is being far too overused, too over-allowed. If we apply it everywhere, then costs just skyrocket. It is applied far too flippantly, and risk management has quietly become the dumping ground for poor decision making, incomplete designs, and unresolved decisions left within a project. So instead of doing that hard work up front, we add on contingency and some allowance, and we just add on risk. When that happens repeatedly, costs rise, projects become less competitive, and eventually many projects simply become unviable. So before we ever allow the risk into our projects, there's some fundamental questions that we should be asking ourselves. First, can it be mitigated? Can the issue be reduced through better planning, definition, or sequencing? Second, can it be designed out? Does the risk exist because design information is incomplete or underdeveloped? Third, can it be shifted? Can the risk be better managed by another party within the supply chain, rather than being held centrally as a financial allowance? And fourth, does it even need to be a risk at all? Or is it simply just a cost that we've not yet bothered to properly define? Too often, these questions are just skipped. Risk becomes the easy answer. And easy answers are usually expensive ones. Now, let's talk about scale. Across full project life cycles, when you add it all up, risk and risk management typically accounts for around 30% of all total project costs. Think about that for a second. So on a £1 million project, roughly £300,000 of that project is not actually delivering physical value. The value of the project, the part that creates the building, the infrastructure, the asset, it's actually closer to 700,000. Everything else is supervision, checks, validation, verification, coordination, management. Now, all of that exists for one reason: to manage the risk. Now, I'm not saying at all that risk can be or should be completely eliminated. That is just unrealistic. But we have to be honest with ourselves. Risk and risk management isn't a value-adding activity. It's a necessity. However, it's still overhead. So if 30% is the norm today, the question is not whether risk matters. The question is how much of that risk actually needs to exist at all. Because reducing risk doesn't just save money. It increases certainty. It improves delivery. And it makes more projects viable. But none of that happens without better understanding. We need a better industry-wide understanding of what commercial risk actually is, how it should be used, and just as importantly, how it should not be used. Now, this isn't just an issue for quantity surveyors. There's project managers, they need to understand it. Design teams need to understand it. Commercial managers, planners, project managers, directors, we all need a shared language around risk. Because when the team doesn't understand the risk, the behaviour will never change. And if behaviour does not change, then don't expect the outcomes to change neither. So the conversation we need to have as an industry is this: what is the true definition of a commercial risk? How are we currently using it? How should we be using it? And what systems and behaviours and education do we need to improve? Now, if we get that right, we don't just reduce the cost, we improve confidence, we improve decision making, and we deliver better projects, because risk isn't the enemy. Misunderstanding the risk is.